for the people that got hit by the flood in a direct way, they've got some big challenges ahead of them. I remember a batch of us getting together with FEMA immediately after the flood. And what we heard, and I've talked with, a batch of the other people who were in the room, and they agree that this is what we heard, that if you had uninsured losses of at least $30,000 as a homeowner, you would get a $30,000 grant from FEMA. If you had $100,000 worth of damage, you'd still just get 30. But you would get 30 if you had as much as that, and if you had 20, you would get that. Now, it turns out the average grant to homeowners is less than $6,000.
And why is that? Do we know?
It has to do with how they calculate it. They calculate the loss, and they look at what the losses were. And if you lost a roof, for example, and your roof was at the end of its life, they would depreciate that. And they depreciated.
So you don't get the replacement cost.
You don't get the replacement cost. It's very different than insurance. As I understand this, it gets very complicated.
Right.
And it's possible that we didn't listen well, but I don't think so. I think we heard what we heard, and it was very clear to us that homeowners were, with that uninsured $30,000 or more loss, would get that grant. So I think that there were some expectations that were raised.
Are homeowners objecting? Are there protests about this?
I don't know. Vermonters are pretty resilient. If they were uninsured, they probably didn't expect anything on some level.
Right.
They knew they were going to have to muddle through. They signed up with FEMA. They had, the test. They didn't. The process can be a little not clear to property owners. They don't know about appeal possibilities.
People seem to be accepting it.
They seem to accept it, but it's got to be a hardship.
Right.
And for people who already had mortgages on their property, they had to add to that. It's and just how tough. I remember going down Randall Street, not immediately after, but several days after, and oh boy, it really took your breath away, what these people were dealing with. And then, as I say, we have been doing a lot of work in Wilmington, and the same thing is true. So that's the homeowner side. For businesses and nonprofits, they suffered significantly, and there wasn't much in the way of grants available to them. And many of those businesses and nonprofits have had to take on big new debt, $100,000, $200,000, in some cases $300,000 of new debt. We, in the aftermath of Irene, we received a number of pretty significant contributions, both individuals and foundations, from Newman's Own Foundation, the Walter Surf Fund at the Community Foundation, the Donchen Foundation, and the Freeman Foundation, as well as lots of individuals. So we were able to use that money to make grants to help support the rehabilitation of covered bridges, of key municipal buildings, key community gathering places.
How much money we're talking about in total?
About $300,000.
The $300,000 you raised from these various sources.
And so we were able to make some very modest grants, $5,000 and $10,000 to folks. But as part of our due diligence, we asked them to apply and tell us what their situation was. And so that's how we got this data about seeing these businesses that had to go out and borrow a couple $100,000.
Are you concerned that this debt burden on businesses is going to be an economic drag on the entire state?
Well, I think it's going to be a drag on these individual businesses, and ultimately that plays out in the state economy.
But it hasn't seemed to have happened yet, right? So far as, I mean, the economy is growing, not by the,
right,
but it's not growing fast anywhere.
Right,
so,
right. But I think some of these businesses that were probably struggling on some level to begin with, because it's not easy being a small business anywhere.
no, most of these are small margin. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And so they're in a position of taking on more debt. They did get low interest loans, and that's good, but it's still debt that needs to be paid back. So I think we'll see how this plays out with these folks over the long term. They in the spirit of the recovery, they jumped in and borrowed the money, did the work, tried to get open as quickly as possible, and now we'll see how they do. I pray that they make it,